them and demonize their profession, they continue to sacrifice their life for the sake of others. And as we all know, radical movements like the Defund the Police movement seek to vilify the men and women who leave their families every day and put their lives on the line to protect all Georgians. This far-left movement will endanger our communities and our law enforcement officers and leave our most vulnerable at risk. Representative Houston Gaines, the author of House Bill 286. Representative.
Well, thank you, Governor. I'm honored to be here and appreciate Barrow County Sheriff Judd Smith for having us this afternoon. It's awesome to see so many women and men in law enforcement here this afternoon. And I want to say, like the Governor, thank you for what you do, keeping our communities safe. Here in Georgia, we back the blue. And that's why we're here today, to say loud and clear we support law enforcement and that we're going to keep families in our state safe. I want to thank the many folks who work together to help make this bill a reality. On the House side, I want to thank Chairman England for his support, who's here today. And on the Senate side, in particular, I want to thank Senator Randy Robertson, who carried this piece of legislation in the Senate, and as a law enforcement veteran, understands why this piece of legislation is so important. I also want to thank Chairman John Albers for his leadership in making this bill happen through his committee. I also see folks from the Police Benevolent Association. I want to thank them for their support from day one. And I know we have several folks with the Sheriff's Association and the Police Chiefs Association as well. Thank you for all you do. As the Governor said, over the last year, we've seen radical calls to defund the police in cities across the nation. In cities like Minneapolis, Los Angeles, and Portland, where local governments have slashed police budgets, crime has skyrocketed. Now those cities are working to restore that funding, and I'm glad to see they've come to their senses. But it's too late for the crimes that have already been committed, the damage done to those communities, and the lives lost. As the Governor said, here in Georgia too, we've seen calls to defund the police. Over the last several months, Athens and Atlanta have considered proposals to slash police funding. In Atlanta, an effort to cut $73 million from the police budget only failed by one vote on the city council. Last year in Athens, just down the road in my hometown, there was a proposal by county commissioners to cut 50% of the police budget. And that's why I brought this bill forward. When the proposal to cut 50% was released, I heard from folks across the political spectrum concerned. I knew we had to do something. Listen, I support local control, but when you have local governments that are out of control, I knew we had to act. While we're fortunate these proposals didn't pass the first time around, we can't let it happen. Take a look at Atlanta right now. Murders are up 60% and shootings are up 51% year to date. Now is the time to invest in law enforcement. We need to increase the pay of our police officers, add money in the budget for more resources, and stand by those who keep our community safe. Because the reality is, defunding the police is a radical movement that will endanger our families and our law enforcement officers alike. House Bill 286 will protect families across the state. Public safety is not a partisan issue. It's one we can all agree on, and that's why this legislation is so critical. Today we're making it clear that we won't allow the defund the police movement to take a foothold in Georgia. We're going to protect public safety in Georgia. I'm extremely proud of this bill, and I'm grateful for you all being here today, especially our law enforcement officers. Thank you, Governor, for signing this piece of legislation, and thank you for keeping our families safe.
Hey, it's Brian. Talking about violence and guns and responsibility of police and what do you do with the police? And you defund them, you get rid of them. Well, of course that doesn't create a better society. I have a much better idea. It's very simple. You start very young and you treat every individual in school, every child, with the pleasure of being familiarized with a gun. In the beginning, it's just about the gun, the images, the pros and cons. And then when they're probably 5 or 6 or 7, you start teaching them how to touch a gun. And then by the time they're in high school, you show them how to take apart and put together a gun. And by the end of high school, you let them shoot a gun. And in the end, yes, maybe you're training everyone to be a police officer for the New World Order. However, you're also making a situation where everyone where you go knows how to use a gun. So it's not a great idea to whip out a gun because perhaps everyone's armed and well trained in gun usage. And your little plan of taking over a place is, if ever, one of these situations where there are a mass shooting or something of that nature could happen, you'd have well-armed people who are essentially police officer trained, militarily trained from youth to have respect for the weapon. Doesn't necessarily mean you give everyone a weapon. Not everyone's going to be interested in a weapon. It is certainly interesting if you allow people to be trained and to at least know how they work, that they're not going to be afraid around them as well. Anyway, be blessed. I think that's a valid point. And if also you want to get rid of mass shootings at schools, let's move the police station over to the school. And let's make it cool to hang out with police officers because they're just our family members and our local people. The only people who have anything to hide have something to hide, whether it's drugs or anything more nefarious, dealing with trafficking of traffic or other traffics. And anyway, so, but if you have nothing to hide, then you would have no reason to want to avoid just being trained around a gun and being comfortable around it, whether you carried one or not. Very few people actually die from gun violence, so let's be real. Anyway, be blessed. In Jesus' name, I bless you.